I'm now happy to introduce Suzanne Flint.
Happy New Year, everybody. I can't believe we're starting yet another year, and even though I know it's shaky for a lot of us, I'm remaining optimistic, and I'm certainly inspired by all of the contact that I've had with you guys and the work that you're doing. So welcome back as we begin our third online fellowship course. I hope you had restful holidays as well as an opportunity to catch up a bit with all of the online course content. We know that life has a way of unexpectedly intervening in our best laid plans and know that some of you have had to deal with some especially challenging circumstances. We appreciate you keeping us apprised of your status and persevering as best you can. As I've been following the progress of many of you, it's been confirmed daily the value that these online classes can afford you. They really can help you move from great ideas to great ideas in action with amazing results. However, without these skills, good ideas often falter or miss the mark entirely. So again, we encourage you to continue to stay as fully engaged in this process as possible. It will not only serve you well for this fellowship, but for all your future library work. Should you have any questions about the fellowship in general, especially if anything has come up over the holiday break, or you have concerns about your progress to date, please contact either Stephen or me offline, not as a part of the chat or Q&A in today's webinar, but via phone or email to us, and we'll be happy to address any of your concerns or questions there. I also want to take a moment to thank Cindy Mediavilla for the excellent course in community assessment and the tools that she created for us that, if you utilize them, will serve you well in identifying and executing any project. We'll look forward to Cindy's next class on evaluation in March. So before I introduce Stephen, remember that Mary Ross and I will be assisting Stephen with this webinar by monitoring both the chat and Q&A. There will be breaks in Stephen's presentation when Mary and I will review the comments posted in chat and the questions posted in Q&A, and Stephen will have an opportunity to respond. To help us help Stephen, please be sure to differentiate your posts with responses to Stephen's inquiries or comments that you want to share posted in chat, while your own questions for which you want a response from Stephen should be specifically posted in the Q&A. Remember, not everyone will be able to see their questions, but I promise you, I will make sure that all questions get read back to Stephen and he has an opportunity to respond. So as many of you may know, Stephen Ristow has 35 years of experience in the human service sector as an executive, senior manager, consultant, trainer, and clinician, all capacities in which partnerships and collaborations were essential to his success. His recent work, Purpose Work, has focused on expanding connections between nonprofits and midlife adults ages 50+. He sees great opportunities for library partnerships that will serve the community and help individuals find greater meaning and purpose in their lives. Stephen?
Thanks, Suzanne, and Happy New Year, everyone. It's great to be with you again, and it's been just a joy to read your posts on the online course as you've engaged in the Partnerships and Collaboration course. For the next 45 minutes or so, I'll be walking you through some concepts about partnerships based on my experience working in nonprofit, public, and private sector settings. We will do some review about collaboration. We will describe and discuss examples of TLA50 innovation through library partnerships. I'll share some research on organizational adaptability and resilience, especially the concepts of external focus and network connectedness. And finally, I'll leave you with a tool to gauge your own library's readiness for collaboration. But to start, I'd like to recognize the great wisdom we have in this room. I've read your course posts and have been so impressed by the experience and insights you have with partnerships. Here's just a few examples from the posts. Partnerships help me stretch the programming for our community. It seems like every library transaction is related to some kind of overall partnership. I hope to find a niche for the library to partner with some of the many community organizations. We need to be a strong presence in the community. I have been actively building connections with these groups to better position the library in the community. The organizations that I've developed relationships with have a vested interest in programming for the midlife adult. I have discovered through this process that compromise, upfront agreements, and a good sense of humor are essential in working with community partners. In my new position, I am eager to learn about my community and the players and the movers and shakers. Building strong partnerships is vital. Our experience really taught us that when we leave the four walls of the library and actually approach other groups and people, good things can happen. I've learned that it's important to spell out everyone's expectations of who is doing what and what will happen. And finally, I have found that by giving staff or volunteers more independence to make decisions, things progress more quickly. And the more I show partners that I aim to learn from them, they seem to offer even more. This is remarkable wisdom based in experience, and I urge you to continue sharing it with your colleagues. For those of you who are just getting started with this collaboration stuff or even just logging on to the course, rely on these wise fellows among you. Let us be a model of the kind of collaborative efforts we're talking about in this course by recognizing the assets that all of us bring to the table. In the first week of the course, we define partnership along a continuum starting with cooperation, moving to coordination, and then to collaboration. And as I read your posts, it's clear that you understand that as you move more toward collaboration, the impact of the partnerships are greater all the time. True collaboration requires a commitment to shared goals, a jointly developed structure and shared responsibility, mutual authority and accountability for success, and sharing of resources, risks, and rewards. However you decide to work together, it's important that everyone understands and agrees to the purpose of the collaboration, the degree of commitment required, and the expectations of partners involved in the effort. Let me reemphasize something that both Mary Jane and Cindy stressed in the first two courses. Your first and most accessible group of partners are your colleagues and fellow staff in your libraries or library systems. If you've not reached out to those folks yet, I encourage you to engage them in the process. These internal partners will provide the expertise, access to populations, support, and ambassadorship you need to get TLA50 language and ideas percolating in your library. As you may have read in the first week content, I see endless possibilities in partnerships. Sometimes our best partners are those under our noses, and we don't even see them. And other times, our partners are outside our areas of comfort and familiarity. Every partnership is hard work. Remember, labor is in the middle of collaboration, which is why we must be focused on what our goals are and how does each partnership advance us toward those goals. Possible partners may be part of colleges and universities, public schools, hospitals and healthcare organizations, arts and humanities groups, social services providers, workforce boards and employment services providers, chambers of commerce. As the recent Urban Libraries Council publication, Partners for the Future, reports, libraries' most promising partners may lie within the local or county government in which they operate. You'll find the link to this report in this week's assignments. This week, you'll also have a chance to build upon the Partnerships Continuum worksheet you started last week. I've provided a master list of organizations to help broaden your scan of potential collaborators. So here's an opportunity for you to do some brainstorming. What additional specific groups or types of organizations might be partners in your TLA50 efforts? Which ones aren't listed in the previous slide that you're thinking about partnering with? We'll give you a few moments now to add these to the chat and come back to those responses in a couple of slides. Now let's move on to some specific examples of TLA50 library innovation and partnerships. From its inception, Discovering What's Next has been a collaboration of individuals and community organizations. It was started by a group of committed individuals, several of whom had experienced job loss in the post-2001 recession. They were seeking a sense of community and connection to share and validate their experience and to support the development of ideas that lead to action for both individual and community benefit. This group of people approached the Newton Free Library. Newton, for those of you who aren't familiar, is just outside of Boston. They approached the Newton Free Library about using space to offer programs. Eventually, the library offered a home to DWN, but as DWN's space needs grew and their geography broadened, they moved to other locations and retain a strong relationship with the library as well as other libraries in neighboring communities. And the library has a local resource that they can refer community members to. Now, one of DWN's greatest innovations is the creation of the DWN Hub and Transition Navigator program. The DWN Hub is a clearinghouse of information, direction, and connection for those making the journey to or transition through retirement. Shelves are filled with books, periodicals, pamphlets, brochures, loose leaf binders. Hub computers provide access to relevant online resources and databases. The Hub is staffed approximately 20 hours a week by transition navigators, a team of volunteers who help visitors figure out what they want and need, then identify how those needs can be met. Transition navigators also provide information, evaluation, and recommendations about community resources. I encourage you to find out more at discoveringwhatsnext.com. In Tempe, Arizona, some of you may be familiar with the Tempe Connections Cafe. This collaboration resulted from strategic efforts by the Tempe city government, led by the public library, to respond to the growing numbers of people in retirement transition who were relocating to their area. Promoted as purpose, programs, and participation brewed in one place, Tempe Connections offers a physical space that includes a high-tech meeting room, outdoor patios, and a cafe on the main floor of the Tempe Public Library. Partnerships with community organizations bring expertise, access to markets, and volunteer opportunities. Tempe Connections also offers resources in employment and recareering. Through their partnerships, online career resources are provided through AARP's Work Search program, the Gateway Community College's Center for Workforce Transition, and the Maricopa County College's Center for Workforce Development. You can learn more at tempeconnections.org. So let's take a look at what you have to say. What additional groups or types of organizations might be particular or potential partners in your TLA50 efforts? Mary?
Well, Stephen, there are a lot of mentions of different organizations here. Becky Menzel mentioned senior centers, and Pam, who I believe works at the State Library, mentions that at the State Library level, one of her partners will be the public libraries in their states. The groups, volunteer groups like RSVP, that's Retired Senior Volunteer Program, I believe, adult community centers. And Jenny has an interesting suggestion about outreach to library partnering with apartment communities to do evening story times in their clubhouses.
Great suggestion.
Dale mentions not-for-profit Society of Financial Advisors, museums, along with the colleges that you mentioned, but museums also. And Rosalita has a really interesting idea about local restaurants that provide free Wi-Fi, community colleges, adult education, senior centers, hospitals, animal shelters, or rescue organizations. That was posted by Christine. WorkSource, the local employment department, one-stop centers, etc. Oh, and along the theme of your colleagues, Dale mentions other library systems as being potential partners. Jeff mentions public access cable. Alan mentions disability service nonprofit organizations such as Center for Accessible Technology. Economic development councils. Oh, and an interesting idea from Diane about therapy dog teams and mentors. And I know there's some questions. Oh, and before Suzanne mentions questions, Sally posted a question here in the chat saying that she looked into AARP, but there isn't a local office. And do you have any ideas about another organization like AARP?
Let me address that one first. I think every state has a state office for AARP, and so I'm not sure if there's someone who's available locally, but there should be a state resource for AARP, and then they have a number of online resources that can be of great use. So I know, for example, the tax aid program is a national program, and a number of libraries partner with AARP around that. This new work search service, or relatively new, is one that really does target people 50 to 65 who are in employment transition looking for new careers. And so if there's a further nuance to that, let me know, because I'd be willing to help you make that connection. The other observation I'd make, Mary, all of these places or partners represent places where you can find baby boomers and others who are 50 and older. And so you're so right to be targeting those places where you can have access to that population. What I'd also encourage you to think about is to make sure that the populations that the organizations that you're partnering with have the same interest in serving midlife adults as you do. A number of senior organizations like Senior Corps or senior centers, even some RSVPs, have begun to rebrand themselves so that they're more relevant to people who are 50 and older. Most folks, I think I may have shared this story at the Institute, my 82-year-old mother who goes to the senior center refuses to call herself a senior. And it's even more extreme for those of us who are 50 and 60 in terms of not seeing ourselves necessarily as senior. But the other thing to keep in mind, and I know Carla will get at this in her in the next online course around volunteer engagement, is if you're particularly interested in serving populations that are older or are homebound or are disabled, be thinking about partnerships with younger midlife adults who may be resources to help you better serve those organizations, to do outreach to nursing homes, to do outreach to to senior centers, to be able to do delivery to the homebound. There are a number of services to reach marginalized populations where the resource of midlife adults can be used to execute that. It's along the same lines as the discovering what's next, utilizing skilled volunteers to staff their transition navigator positions. And they have a large group of highly skilled people who are providing that service, very professional level service, utilizing the volunteer talents of their community. Suzanne, did you have anything to add?
No, and there aren't any questions at the moment.
Okay, good. Well, then let's move on. And I want to continue to talk about some innovation and partnerships around transforming life after 50 initiatives. You heard a little bit about Life by Design Northwest at the Portland Institute. Life by Design is another public-private partnership. The Multnomah County Library is a charter member of this collaboration that is led by the community college and includes Hands-On Greater Portland, the local volunteer chapter, and a major utility, Northwest Natural, that was interested in having resources for its pre-retirees. This initiative has received significant funding from Atlantic Philanthropies. Sad to say, Atlantic has stopped funding these kinds of initiatives. But over the last 5 years, they've received significant funds from Atlantic and from some other local foundations. Jane Salisbury, who joined us at the Portland Institute and will be offering the final course in this fellowship, has led the Multnomah County Library in this very successful partnership. Among their innovative partnerships has been a Books to Action series with Hands-On Greater Portland and a Spirituality and Aging series that utilize pro bono expertise to design and deliver programs. This program we talked a bit about at the Institute, and it was very well attended. I want to bring special focus to the Books to Action initiative because this is one that relies on or uses library capacity with a service component. And so through their partnership with the Hands-On Greater Portland, they delivered this Books to Action model, which includes a book discussion component along with a service component. And this has been particularly attractive to people 50 and older, although it's been of interest to people of all ages. I was so excited to see that they've scheduled another session in February. This particular focus is going to be on the book Life is So Good, written by George Dawson and Richard Globman. Dawson is a black manual laborer who learned to read at the age of 98. And so the group will read and discuss this group, and then they will be volunteering at the Tidal Wave Used Bookstore, doing a service project to learn about the library's adult literacy programs and then help prepare retired library materials to be sold at the bookstore. So there's both an ability to engage in traditional book discussion as well as to be active in carrying out a particular service project along the theme of the book. It's a great and easy, I think, idea, and I'm sure that Jane will be talking more about it in her course at the end of the fellowship. You've also heard a bit about the Pierce County 50 Plus initiative from Cindy Bonero at the Portland Institute. And Cindy talked about how their community assessment process led to identifying key community organizational partners that would form their advisory council. And their advisory council was key in helping them to promote their initiative and actually to design and deliver two community-wide community forums that they provided. In an interview that you'll hear as part of the week 3 of this course next week, Cindy talks about how their 50 Plus initiative has adapted to changing times and recently partnered with the community college, the local business incubator, and other community organizations to provide a job resource center. And I think what Cindy's story underscores is how our organizations need to continue to adapt to the changing environment. And with more and more attention being rightfully given to the economic downturn and to the implications in terms of job loss, so many libraries are looking at ways that they can provide resources to people of all ages, but particularly for folks who are 50 who lose jobs sometimes for the first time and have to go back out into the market for income. So I encourage you to take a look again at the Pierce County website to learn more about their 50 Plus initiative. Now this Berkeley's Transforming Life After 50 project is an example of a very focused 50-plus project on a topic that is particular significance for Berkeley. Alan Byrne, who is participating in this fellowship, was part of the project team that partnered with the Center for Digital Storytelling to create first-person narratives about the social, political, and personal aspects of Berkeley's voluntary school desegregation. Alan can tell you a lot more about the powerful healing effects this project had for the participants and the community at large. And please check out these narratives, these stories on the YouTube site. They are really wonderful. They're very inspiring, and it can give you a real taste of just what an impact this project had. All of these are strong examples of TLA50 innovation through partnerships and collaboration. I encourage you to investigate all of them further on their websites. Right about now, some of you may be thinking, wow, how would my library, how do I start something like these projects? And you may even be thinking, I could never, or we could never do this. All of these examples started with people like you going through a learning experience similar to what you are going through in this fellowship. All included a process of engaging with the community in assessing needs and identifying assets and potential partners. All of these designed strategies that made sense for their community and adapted those strategies as community conditions and resources changed. And all of them demonstrated what Carl Sussman calls the keys to adaptive and resilient organizations. They have external focus, network connectedness, inquisitiveness, and a commitment to innovation. The first two, external focus and network connectedness, have much to do with the capacity for partnerships and collaborations. Let's take a closer look. In the best scenarios, community organizations that are externally focused see themselves as interdependent with their environment, part of an integrated whole. They understand their own assets and capacities, but also seek to combine those with the assets and capacities that others have in the community to leverage an even bigger impact. And this approach is embodied in every person in the organization. Everyone, whether library director, branch manager, bookshelver, or circ desk staff, everyone is expected to carry this outward orientation to engage the community. As a former close colleague of mine in the nonprofit family service world said, I talk to employees about the importance of blurring our boundaries. This is a time of pinnacle collaboration. It's more than collaboration. There are opportunities for real partnerships where you bring together assets that each has and you make a new whole. It's really integrating service delivery. The capacity for network connectedness is another essential quality for partnerships. Your library will achieve its highest level of organizational performance when it does what it does best, and when, either by conscious strategic alliance or the combination of independent efforts, it creates system-level effects consistent with your mission that would be impossible alone. So let's hear again from you. What do you think? What are some examples of external focus and network connectedness from your own experiences or in your libraries? And you may even want to ponder, how do you empower or prepare your frontline staff to demonstrate these qualities in their daily encounters with the community? Again, we'll give you a few moments to post your thoughts to the chat. One of the best quotes I've heard about partnerships is from Thomas McLaughlin, who says the bulk of innovation today will be toward greater collaboration between nonprofit organizations and all others carrying out similar missions. What we call mergers and alliances, and I think you could add joint ventures here, are really just a part of the innovation that the nonprofit sector must deliver over the next 2 or 3 decades. While McLaughlin's work is primarily with nonprofits, I think his counsel applies to public service organizations of all kinds, including libraries. So let's take a look at what you have to say. What about examples of external focus and network connectedness?
Stephen, I think people are still pondering that because I've seen one comment posted so far. But while they're doing that, I think I'm going to go back to something that Sharon Ballard posted a little earlier in response to your question about other potential community partners and collaborators. And she mentioned a local TV station that just launched a community conversation blog. And that local media is definitely a potential partner as well. And Sharon, just wanted to mention that Jenny asked if you have the URL for that blog, could you also copy and paste that into the chat window so we can see that as well? Okay, now I'm going to go ahead.
I would encourage you to post it to the forum on the Ning community. I've been posting a number of things that have been coming out in the media, particularly around the leading edge of the boomers turning 65 on January 1st, and what are the numbers, 7,000 to 10,000 a day who will be turning 65 over the course of this year, or over the next several years. The challenge, I think, with the media is that much of the media continues to hold on to some very old language and definitions of retirement and older age, and I think one of the jobs that we have is to help educate them as well. Those media outlets, television, radio, newsprint, and certainly the online medium, who are embracing some of this new language, new definitions, I think are great partners. But you're also in a position in your communities to begin to educate them, and it's one of the reasons that I put up some of those articles that have been in the media, particularly the print media, in the forum in Ning, because I think that these are conversations that are grist or topics that are grist for conversations in your communities, and it raises at least some awareness about that this is a different stage of life than perhaps previous generations have had at age 60 or 65, and it's very diverse, and so you have a chance really to begin to engage people in defining what their life experience is at this age and stage. Mary?
Okay, well, that was all the time. We did need just to give a little more time because the responses to this are a little more thought-provoking on network connectedness. And
yeah.
Rosalita says that an example is learning to say, yes, we can, instead of, oh, no, we don't or can't do that.
Yeah.
Diane mentions moving program sites to outside the library, to wildlife centers, dog parks, local theaters, et cetera, to give the libraries a non-institutional identity. Paige mentions that a major motivator for the outward focus of her library is the fact that everyone is a potential funder. Jennifer mentions bringing the library collection into the greater community, for example, sending books to the senior center to be checked out on the honor system. Barbara reminds us that we need to be aware of why the library is there, to be of service to the community. And Suzanne, who's in Whatcom County, mentions that community colleges, universities, and libraries there are moving towards offering a one-card option that works at all organizations. Alan mentions doing tech training on libraries' digital resources externally to the library itself, which I assume, Alan, you may want to clarify this, but you mean off-site, another location, in locations other than the library, doing that tech training. And Sally mentions working with local organizations like the American Association of University Women, local community college. These have been mutually beneficial to their fulfilling their missions. That gets back to that shared goals and mutual benefits. And as a city-based library system, just looking outward to the city administration and staff has also been really beneficial. Jenny mentions that they feel pressure to prove to the government that the library is a valuable amenity, and that has resulted in a strong focus on encouraging patron feedback. Classes, Mary Wise mentions classes outside the library for state organizations like Department of Human Services and various job-related departments. And Sharon mentions the relationship between the city leadership and her library. And they have accomplished that by better communication and by being involved with the city and their activities. And yes, thank you, Alan's clarifying that tech training is off-site at another organization's computer lab. Yeah. And thanks to Sharon, she's posted the URL for that conversation blog from the local TV station.
Terrific, thanks. All great ideas. And you know, someone posted on the Moodle, I don't know for what week it was, but I was just reading it this morning, again, about how this process has helped to identify who those key kind of internal champions will be, the people that are going to help to get the word out, to begin to disseminate some of the ideas of transforming life after 50 and actually begin to make this a reality for the library. So the network connectedness obviously is an internal network as well. How do you begin to spread the word internally? This can be a challenge for folks whose personalities are such that, you know, they like to kind of stay within themselves or within their own you know, internal thought process and don't see themselves as all that kind of outgoing. And so it does press people, I think, to be mindful that there are opportunities to not only meet individuals, but individuals can open up doors to certain organizations. And so while I think that this kind of standard of expectation of staff to be mindful of those opportunities should exist, I think it's also important to understand that some of us are just more naturally outgoing and gregarious and interested in meeting people, and like me, see a partner in every person who walks down the street. And there are others who are, you know, are a little bit more focused and may not have as wide a view of what's possible or that much confidence. And so it's a matter of identifying where people's strengths are and have them contribute in this way as much as they possibly can. We'll have a chance to get to some other questions at the end, so be thinking about questions that you have or other ideas. I see real quickly here that Linda talks about a partnership with the Chamber of Commerce, and a number of you have identified business partnerships as being critical. I told a story of one library director in Kentucky who came back from the Lifelong Access Institute and was a regular participant in her local Chamber of Commerce and shared some of what she learned at that institute. And business leaders were so responsive to her raising that issue and identified it as an issue that they had to think about as their workforce was getting older, and that they needed to make some plans not only for the transition of the legacy employees that they had in terms of acquired knowledge and relationships, et cetera, but they had to also help to prepare for the next generation of their workforce. And so in this particular case, the library person was able to see herself as a leader in her community. She was bringing an issue to a business table that they hadn't thought about or that they were reminded of, and they took action on as a result of her raising it. So chambers of commerce and businesses many of them who either have an older workforce or have products or services that are geared toward this segment of the population, are also in the midst of talking about these issues, and so they would be great partners because there would be some shared interests, some shared commitment to this population. I've included in the readings in week 1 some information about research that was done by Paul Matisich on the 20 factors that influence collaboration success. If you haven't had a chance to read it, I would encourage you to review it. These 20 factors are grouped into 6 categories: factors related to environment, membership, process and structure, communication, purpose, and resources. Matisich's research suggests that the effectiveness of your collaborative efforts depends on your proficiency in all 20 of these factors. For example, within environment, factors like the history of collaboration or cooperation in a particular community, a favorable political or social climate. The factors that are included under membership characteristics are things like mutual respect and trust and understanding, the ability to compromise. Factors within process and structure have to do both with adaptability and flexibility in the relationship, as well as the ability to develop clear roles and responsibilities. Factors related to communication include things like the openness and frequency of communication and the ability to establish informal relationships and other communication links. Factors related to purpose have to do with the ability to set concrete and attainable goals and objectives, to define a shared vision and purpose. And finally, factors related to resources have to do with the availability of funds and staff and the kind of contributions, the in-kind resources that may be brought to the project and to the partnership, as well as the leadership skills that will be needed. A number of you identified in the partnerships that you have had the importance of skilled leadership. One person that I read this morning talked about how important it is to have a leader from each of the partner organizations who is committed, kind of that organization's champion for that partnership. And obviously, I think those of us who have had these understand that whenever there's turnover, it takes a step out of the process. We kind of step back one when a key member of our partnership has had to step away from participating. It really does affect that partnership. So leadership skills are so critical. So if you haven't read that particular excerpt that I included in the reading, please do so, as well as the supplemental readings that I included for week 1. To help you determine your library's readiness for collaboration, I've adapted the Matisich research and created this tool, the Library Readiness Scale. It's part of the assignment for week 2. I actually saw a few of you have already done it. And I encourage all of you to do this along with your team. Complete it, review your collective responses, and see where your library stands in terms of readiness for collaboration. The real value in this is to identify those areas in which your library demonstrates readiness for collaboration. That's your library's collaboration strengths, and those areas that need strengthening. I'm sure that you'll find it grist for some meaningful discussions as you embark upon forming TLA50 partnerships. Again, I've mentioned I've seen a few people who have posted their responses to this tool. I do think it's kind of a useful instrument for people across your organization to take, because you may find that people will have very different perspectives on it, and it also might identify one or more of these 6 core areas that Matisich talks about that needs to be strengthened, that you need to do a little bit more work on, whether that is on the leadership end or the ability for open and trusting conversations and communications, or the ability even just to focus in on a particular goal or shared purpose. It's I think, a useful tool to do some of that, examination. Okay, so Mary, we've come to the end where we've got a chance now to answer any general questions that people may have, or if there are additional comments about the ideas of network connectedness and external focus. So I'll start with you, Mary, and then let Suzanne jump in as well.
Okay, and I'm going to ask for maybe to move to Suzanne so we can take a few more minutes. A few people did not realize that if they send their chat messages to anyone other than all participants, like if they send to all attendees, that we're not able to see those. So if you did send a chat message and you sent it to all attendees, we're not ignoring it, we just are not able to see it. So if you could copy and paste it back into the chat window, that would be very, very helpful. In the interim, I'll pick up a couple more messages that have been posted. Sharon Ballard says she would be interested in hearing more about this Business Resource Center on the class forum.
Okay.
You want to comment on that, Steve?
Yeah, well, and I'm assuming that this is the resource center that Cindy Bonero is involved with up in the Tacoma area, and there is a recorded interview that is in the third week where she talks a little bit more about that. But I will also try to post some links and further information about that Business Resource Center. It strikes me, because this is such a common interest these days, that maybe another thing that I can do is pull together a collection of a variety of these kinds of partnerships around workforce issues or business development issues through some of these projects. So why don't I also try to do a list of some web links from various initiatives. I'm thinking right now of the one in Tempe as another example of some work that's been going on in the Arizona area.
Okay, and also just wanted to make my apologies if I have missed anyone's chat message, if I missed it in the scrolling that's been going on, but they're just copy and paste it again if I've missed it, because we do have time for Stephen to address it. And Colleen says, our Chamber of Commerce and Utilities company partnered together and funded a business resource center in their library that included books and computers for library users. Thanks, Colleen, for posting that.
Yeah. And again, I think that I just got a note here from Pam Jaskett from the State Library in North Carolina saying that she has some links for workforce programs in North Carolina. I would encourage all of us to post those in the forum discussions on the Moodle so that they can be resources. And what I will do is pull that and then also put them on the Ning so that they're available there for not only for yourself but for some of your colleagues if they go to the Ning site. So we'll try to develop a resource list of the kinds of organizations that are offering those kinds of services. So much of this is being done online now, so it is pretty accessible. Any other comments? Suzanne, do you see anything?
No, there aren't any specific questions at this time.
Okay.
I have some of my own, but I'm going to save them for later.
Okay. Okay. Well, I think that brings us to the end. Again, I want to thank you for your participation in today's webinar as well as in this course. I want to encourage you to remain active in your participation in the course, and remind you again that as we collaborate together, each of you are a resource to one another. every time I go back and look at what has been posted since the last time I went, I have a chance to review things that were said before. And as I thought about if I was a student in this class, I might just put my post once and not return to it. And if you do that, then you miss any that come after you. And so I would encourage you to revisit some of the posts, whether it's getting to know you that's right at the beginning or each of the forum posts for the assignments for each of the weeks. I think you will really get a sense of the kind of experience that exists right in this space. And so each of you can be a resource for one another. What I will try to do is cull and pull some major themes and resources and put those in one place so that and then bring attention to them so that you can be reminded that that's where they exist. But certainly continue to explore the experience that each of you have with this. And just a final plug for the work that the Berkeley Library did with Alan Byrne in our midst. He's a great person to ask more about that. Check out those videos. They're really pretty special. Suzanne, I think that's it for me.
Okay, well, thanks, Stephen, for an inspiring presentation, and we're going to look forward to following the related activities and conversations back in Moodle. The one thing I'm particularly interested in hearing, because I can't agree more with Stephen about all the expertise that you all have among you, and that is to hear more about how you've all overcome some of the hurdles to partnering, because clearly there are. So I'd be curious to hear back in Moodle what some of you have done to surmount those challenges. So thanks, everyone, for your participation, and we'll look forward to our next webinar with Carla Lane on February 24th, and lots of continued conversations in the Moodle. So take care and have a great day.